So our next session is one I'm particularly interested about. Indian language models, LLMs, are revolutionizing inclusive digital access and can even bring about profound cultural and societal shifts. To learn more, let's welcome our brilliant panel, Arvind Pani, co-founder and CEO, Reverie, Manu Kumar Jain, CEO, G42 India, Rajkiran Panuganti, Senior Director, Foundational LLM Models, Krutrim, and moderated by Gautam Gandhi, partner, NYTCP. Gautam is an industry veteran with over 15 years of experience helping emerging businesses grow. He is currently partner at NYTCP, an early-stage VC fund and full-service advisory firm. He has active angel investor experience of over 20-plus companies. Welcome, and over to you guys.
Sorry, there's a minor announcement. Somebody has left their wallet at the registration counter. If you've left your wallet at the registration counter, my colleague Abhishek has it here. Please come and collect it.
Okay, great. I'm very excited about this panel. And we're going to learn all about LLMs, and we're going to meet some three people. We're going to try to have some fun on stage. So one thing I'm going to ask is that the audience, we're going to have a lot of Q&A, so we're going to open it up. So have your questions ready. So first, let's do some quick intros. I'm going to emphasize the word quick. So Arvind, you are the co-founder and CEO of Reverie. And as we were discussing earlier, we've had a long association, which I didn't even know about, which is very interesting. And you've come in from where? Where you're based out of?
Bangalore.
Bangalore. Yeah. So we have our closest visitor today. So please.
Been in Bangalore for 25 years, and I moved to Bangalore as employed with Intel. And Reverie Language Technologies, we started in 2009, and many first to our credit. We would like to see a day when all Indian users are able to use the digital or internet in their own languages and not having to depend on English, and as easily as English language users are able to do that. We work on text and speech technologies as well, and our USP is to be able to train models with less amount of data and bring the computing cost down significantly.
Oh, that's great. And you've been working on one of the toughest problems, which is, like you said, language discrimination. And you started the company in 2009, and you actually won the Q Prize in 2011. Next, I want to introduce everybody to Manu Jain. He's an industry veteran who I've also met a long time ago. Before you actually, I don't know if you know Manu, you worked with a friend of mine, Hugo. So. And Manu, Hugo was working with us at Google and then was running Xiaomi, and you were Global Vice President, CEO of Xiaomi Operations for all of India. It was an amazing experience. I mean, who's used a Xiaomi phone in their life? I mean, it's incredible the impact that they had. No. And now you are based out of Dubai and Abu Dhabi, so you're the second furthest person. Might be, I think you were saying that the travel time from Bangalore or Dubai might be the same. Maybe Dubai is closer, right? So which is interesting. And now you're a CEO of a company called G42. So tell us a little bit about what you're up to now.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much. So hi guys, I'm Manu. I represent a company called G42. It's a holding company based out of Abu Dhabi. We build supercomputers, we build large-scale data centers, LLMs, genome sequencing, autonomous driving, satellites, and a bunch of other things. Each one of them would be the largest in Middle East or one of the largest in the world. In India, we are trying to do three things. One, build extremely large-scale data centers, which has a potential to almost double the total capacity in India. Second, build India's largest ever supercomputer. And third, co-develop Indic language LLM models with Government of India or with people like you. And we just announced our first Hindi LLM model, Nanda, which is a 13 billion parameter, 2 trillion token model. So happy to be here. Thank you.
And prior to Xiaomi, I want to give a little more background. Manu was one of the first sort of e-commerce entrepreneurs. You were the co-founder of Jabong. Who's heard of Jabong? Let's make sure that Oh, yeah, so look at the impact.
So first
So
selling,
long ago,
first
2000.
selling shoes and clothes, then
Yeah.
selling phones, now building AI models.
Yeah.
So
Well,
three
that's,
different.
that's the Indian dream. Manu holds a B.Tech from IIT Delhi and an MBA from IIM Calcutta, so don't be fooled by his good looks. He's actually a very smart guy as well. And then finally, Raj, who's traveled in from San Jose, California, so it's getting further and further. Raj is a senior director of Krutrim, where they were presenting earlier. And Raj, tell us a little bit about your background.
Hi, I'm Rajkiran. Okay, sorry, I'll be louder. My name is Rajkiran Panuganti. I'm Senior Director at Ola Krutrim. As you guys know, we are building the entire AI stack for Indian market primarily as a focus. Most of my career has been, a lot of my career has been at Microsoft, building the search stack there at Bing, then Azure, then Cortana, then Microsoft Office 365 Copilot. And then I joined Krutrim, trying to build similar stuff for India with a large more impact and building the entire AI stack for the Indian market.
How long were you at Microsoft for?
Oh, I was very long, probably 14 years or even 14 plus years, close to 15.
14 years at Microsoft.
Yes.
You worked on Office 365 Copilot,
Yes.
Bing Search. I mean, these were leading edge products, and now you've joined
Correct.
Krutrim. It's a very interesting, fascinating background. So the panel is why Indian LLM. So I think what I wanted to do was we were back talking earlier, and I said, I don't think a lot of people in the audience even know what is an LLM. Like before we get to Indian LLMs, what is an LLM? So Raj, I'm going to start with you because you unfortunately have the most experience in this with your background. Maybe you can just explain what is an LLM to everybody.
Yeah, of course I come from a tech background. I don't want to sound very techy, but in short, large language models are essentially the language models trying to understand the way a human language essentially works, right? So you can do variety of tasks or natural language processing tasks using these LLM models. Earlier, before that, for every type of task, we had to build a specific model catering to that type of task, right? Now these LLMs are essentially trying to be one model to rule them all. Sorry about that. So these LLM models are essentially trying to be one model, trying to understand all kinds of stuff with natural language, right? So essentially they are built out of what is called as transformer models, came out of Google in 2017, and OpenAI has proved over 5 years ago that a single model can beat customized models on various tasks if you simply increase the size of the model to a drastic level, right? And also pump in a lot of training data to it. So what this is revolutionizing is essentially now, as humans, we deal with natural language. We deal with anything like sequence, like audio, video, etc., everything that goes in sequence, right? For all of these human-related communication aspects, these large language models are able to work just like any other human, right? And hence they are revolutionizing the whole space from where computers were dealing with only structured data, and now they can deal with you humans like just like another human, right? They can be your assistant, they can be your colleagues, they can transform the entire space of communication as well as application building. And of course the applications is only limited to your imagination. I think this is a space that is bigger than even a dot-com boom, right? The entire mode of your communication is changing. It's enabling many people to do tasks with computer that earlier only specialized engineers, specialized scientists were able to do. And it has commoditized many of these tasks for most people. And that is bringing in the whole revolution, right? So you're no longer communicating with computers in a structured manner, writing their programs in their language, you are able to communicate with these efficient ones in your own language.
So is LLM a natural way for us to interface with computing? Is that what you said LLM is?
Yeah, LLM essentially tries to achieve that a natural way of interacting
Yeah.
with them.
Arvind, you've been doing this for a long time. How do you describe LLM? Maybe try to describe it a little simpler, because Raj's explanation, I mean, is very complicated. I'm not as technical. Arvind, maybe you can let me hear your translation of LLM.
Yeah, so
In brief.
I don't want to repeat what Raj mentioned because he summarized that very well. But when we are talking also about such large amount of data, the context of that data really is different for different people and different region. I'll give you an example you will be able to understand very well. So if we take something like Ayurveda, the origin of Ayurveda is in India. And if we are trying to build a large language model that can address the context of Ayurveda as well, let's presume that we do, and which is a fact, we do not have enough data in Indian languages or even English language probably, which are created in India and digitally available to be able to train those models. Let's assume that most of this data have actually been created in the West. So that is their interpretation of Ayurveda. If we are taking that data and training the model for Indian context, I'm not sure how relevant Indians might find that context as far as Ayurveda is concerned. So in addition to what Rajkiran mentioned, my view on large language models is that it is highly context sensitive, and those contexts, we should actually take the data from the origin of where those contexts actually arise from. So that's one additional point that I would like to bring about.
Okay. Manu, you just said you launched a local language LLM, Nanda. So before we get into the local part, maybe you can define what is an LLM, and then what is a local language LLM with context to Nanda.
Okay, I think everybody here knows what LLM is, but I'll try and give the most simplistic answer. So when we launch it, my mom called me up.
Actually, I'm going to cut you off because in the back you said, you told me to ask you, explain LLM to, I think, 10-year-old.
Okay.
So I told you I didn't want to ask that question. Now I'm going to ask it. So explain LLM to a 10-year-old.
So when we launched this, when we announced this Nanda model 2 weeks ago, my mom called me up. And she basically asked me, beta, launch kya kara hai? Kya bana kya rahe ho, right?
Yeah.
So this is what I explained to her, and this is what I will explain to a 10-year-old. Think of LLM as a supercomputer or a digital robot or a magic robot who has read thousands and thousands and millions of books and has become intelligent enough to not only answer things that were happened in history or geography or anything factually, but can also do work for you that otherwise somebody else would do it. Like you would want your assistant to schedule your calendar, you would want somebody to make a presentation for you, an associate to make an Excel sheet for you. All of this work can now be done by this digital assistant. That for me is an LLM in a very simple language. Is it
yeah, I think
enough?
that's a good. Does everybody here understand LLMs now? Okay. You did like a little workshop.
Okay.
Now, the question in the panel is, which this question was asked by Rajan very famously when Sam Altman is here. Okay, we know LLMs, everyone's used ChatGPT, everybody uses Gemini, Copilot. Why do we need an Indian LLM? What's the point?
So a lot of context, same point, similar point, but I'll maybe give some example. Have you guys heard of this phrase, Nani yaad aa jayegi? Right? Now, if somebody were to use this in English, you will remember your grandmother. But that's not what it means, right? Nani yaad aa jayegi means it is a very difficult situation and you'll find it very tough. Or the difference between chachi, tai, mami, mosi, everybody is an aunt in English. So a lot of these kind of contexts, which is basically lost in translation between Hindi and English, and not just Hindi and English, but English, because a lot of us, the way we speak, at least I do, ki Adi Hindi, Adi English, that is completely lost in the anything which is just trained on English. Or the fact that we write Hindi using English or Roman characters. मैं आ रहा हूँ, MAIN, So a lot of those things are completely missed, and that's why the whole need of training models using contextual data, which is from Indian languages and which takes into account all of these contexts, which would be missed otherwise.
Okay. I have, how many people have used an AI, ChatGPT or OpenAI or anything? And how many people have used it in Hindi or spoken to it in Hindi or written in Hindi and have gotten a response back that they've been happy with? Interesting. And how many people have not gotten a response back they've been happy with? Okay. So the reason I'm asking this question is that, in essence, are you competing with these other companies who are also working on these things? And is this really needed? I mean, I'm just really asking, is this really needed? And we'll start with Raj first because he's had experience building these things. And you've decided to take on this challenge, so there must be a reason that you think that it's important to have a local LLM. And when we say local, also, it's not just Hindi, it's all the Indic languages. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. So actually, when this problem statement was in front of me of building Indian LLM, right? For myself, I just asked this question: why Indian LLMs? Right? I have been in US and I still live in US, and at a personal level, whenever I'm on a phone, I always have to spell out my name like R for rabbit, A for apple, and the day I believe I can really just say Raj or Rajkiran, right? That's a LLM that is probably able to understand an Indian accent, Indian language, or Indian name. I mean, even when I was at Microsoft in the initial days, in Microsoft Word, my colleague's name, American colleague's name, they were not spelling errors. My name was a spelling error, right? So that sounded weird to me, right? And coming to the actual question about taking on these giant LLMs or whatever, the giant companies, right? So when this problem was in front of me, I first asked, okay, what does it really mean to people in general, not just to me, right? So I tried to generate an answer for a question or a essay for a topic, both in English as well as in Hindi and Kannada and Telugu. The same thing costed X amount of dollars in English, and Hindi, it costed me something like 3x, and for Kannada and Telugu, it costed even 10x of the same price for the same content that I get in English, right? Because they are optimized for a particular language that they are in focus, right? And think of putting this in the context of what's happening in Bangalore. Hindi costs 5 times cheaper than what it costs in Kannada. It has various implications. And we have also many companies come to us showing their bills. Whenever they have to do anything for Indian languages, it costs a lot because that's not the focus of these LLMs. At least it was not for a long time. Now they are extending, but not yet there. Right? Having said that, when we are saying that we are also building these LLMs, we are not just building for Indian languages only. English is also an Indian language. So in a way, we can cater to the global market too. So in other words, for us, it's not just make for India, it's make in India, right? And you don't have these questions like why Indian LLM or why French LLM by a Mistral or why American LLM in US, right? We ask this, we don't want to do it just for India, we want to make in India. And the reason here again, we want to be in a way not be controlled and have some external guys as our gatekeepers. You have control and sovereignty over what you build in the way we want to build according to the policies and cultural sensitivities that we have, right? And probably according to the sensitivities that Indian market has. Like, let's say we are building for some religious organization, for example, right? The kind of moderation that they need may not be present in the global LLMs because that's not their target. Right? And if all of you use the cloud, right? All of you use the cloud, they lock you in, and with the kind of expenditure that you get or the kind of money that you need to spend for these AWS or Azure is enormous. They are built by a majority, a significant chunk by Indian developers, but is for the Indian developers to use them, they are still priced according to the American cost. Right? It's not fair.
Thank you, Raj. Manu, we were talking earlier about cultural context and the need, and Raj has explained, a little bit about that. What are some of the use cases for Nanda that, that'd be helpful for Indian LLMs?
A lot of use cases that I can think of from being integrated into the technology fabric of the country, like integrating with technology platforms like ONDC, UPI, and really powering them. Or these could be, just think about healthcare, like a small town, say Dorala in UP. And over there, I'm just giving an example, but maybe the medical facility is not that easily available. But you can actually build a medical LLM in local language, and which can help at least diagnose initial things by the time the medical help reaches. Or could be education, could be used by banking. I was meeting the CEO of one of the largest movie production houses, and the interesting use case that he mentioned was, he said, it takes us more than a month to just plan the entire movie. Like when the shoot should happen, where should happen, who should come at what point of time, when the hero should come, when heroine should come, etc. And this whole work is done manually and takes more than few weeks, 5 to 6 weeks, just for this planning to be done. So if the LLM can basically help me do this entire planning in a short period of time, in few hours, why not? I would love to use it. So there could be use cases in education, it could be use cases in content and fun industry, it could be in national projects. One thing that I would just say, that for a country like India, I think the next big thing would happen, because all of us, or many of us, maybe not people sitting in the room, but if you go outside, a lot of people are still comfortable with just voice, and rather than text. And unfortunately, people are not comfortable in typing in local languages, and that's why the whole Romanized way of typing in Hindi. So when the voice-to-voice things becomes really efficient, I think that's when you'll see a lot of adoption and a lot of use cases coming in.
I was actually using the Gemini voice in Hindi yesterday, and it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'll show it to you afterwards. As we're developing, so we, establishing a necessity for Indian LLMs, there's challenges in creating it, and Arvind, I'd like to hear from you. One of the key challenges is, data availability and quality of data. How are you overcoming those challenges?
So that has always been a challenge for Indian languages. It's a fact that even though this is the second largest internet user base, we do not have enough data that is generated in Indian languages. So there are a few challenges that I will talk about, which need to be addressed, and some of those things are being addressed as well.
As you mentioned, those challenges, are those opportunities for entrepreneurs in the audience?
Those actually are opportunities.
Right.
Those are absolutely opportunities. So just going back to the previous example I gave you about translating a book in Ayurveda that has been written in the West and trying to use it in Indian context may be very different from using the data which is generated in India. So Indian languages structurally, they are actually designed differently from Roman languages. I'll give you a very simple example that you will be able to understand. And these are not the nuances that are being tapped by many who are working on Indian language technologies. Let us say if something which is written as an Indian word, but it is written in Roman script, like K-A-L-A, right? So K-A-L-A could be pronounced as Kala. It could be pronounced as Kala. In some of the languages, it could be pronounced as Kala. But if any of you, I presume that all of you know at least one Indian language. If you actually write in an Indian script Kala, there is no way you are going to pronounce that as anything other than Kala. So the knowledge to be able to tap this is extremely important. And I can guarantee you that if anyone is typing the properties of Indian languages, the computing cost for Indian language LLMs is likely to be at least 50% lower than what it is there for English language. Now today what's existing, even for Hindi language, as we stand today, it's at least 2.5 times to 3 times more expensive computing cost for Hindi And if you take other languages, it is prohibitively more. It is 7x to 10x more, right? So once again, to actually build an analogy that all of you will be able to understand, one, of course, is that there is not a lot of source data that is being created by Indian users. We are consuming, but not quality data is being created. The response or the answer to that one is not really to translate data which is there in English language and then train our models in Indian languages. We need to know that with the limited amount of data which is available, how can we have clean data and still able to train that. So I just want to conclude with an analogy that you will be able to really understand is chicken tikka masala is very famous, not just in India, everywhere else. And there is a process, there is a recipe to prepare chicken tikka masala. So today, when we are talking about training models for for languages, the recipe is there, but we also need right kind of ingredients. So taking the right kind of ingredients and preparing chicken tikka masala in India is likely to give a very different taste and context than really taking the same ingredients or different ingredients in the West and preparing chicken tikka masala. The taste is going to be very different. So that's what I'm going to, I'm basically emphasizing the fact that we really need to understand how we can leverage the properties of Indian languages, which are structurally very scientifically designed and very different. And just to touch upon what Manu was mentioning about text, now it is unfortunate that we are probably still relying largely on voice, and one big reason could be that we never had any kind of standards for text. Till date, we do not have a keypad that we can, like QWERTY is for English language, we can't say for any Indian language there is a standard keypad. And you would all be surprised that English has got 26 alphabets that all of us know. In digital standards also, English has got 26 alphabets. For Hindi language, in digital standards, now in books, state and central prescribed books, there are 52 characters for Hindi language. But for digital standards for Hindi language, there are 92 characters which are part of the Unicode page of Hindi. So these are some of the things that India actually needs to stand up and fix before, and because these are the fundamental issues that are impacting the quality of data and our ability to train our models as well.
We have about 9 minutes left. I want to do some Q&A so we can get the microphones, please, adjusted. We have Nikhil Pawa here, who's delighted. Thank you, Nikhil, for visiting. So we'll give Nikhil the first question. So while we get the microphones ready, I appreciate the non-veg joke, by the way. I just wanted to say that. Before Nikhil gets said, you guys all have products. Can you tell us, you know, Manu was asking earlier, your product is live today. How can people access it? Same with Manu, if you could tell us all three about where you are in the product, how people can access it very quickly, then let's open a Q&A.
So quickly, so basically we launched our LLM. We were the first Indian foundational model that we launched in February or early February. And we have a cloud, Krutrim cloud.
And
so
what's the URL? How do they access it?
You can just search for Krutrim cloud and you can just access it.
Okay.
Or you can search for chat.krutrim.com.
Okay. And how do you access Nanda today? Can you access it?
Only in the beta version, not in
So can they email you to access the beta version?
Yes.
So developers, please email Manu.
Yes.
You want to give your email out loud?
I will do that. And it will be open source once we launch it.
When's the launch expected?
Hopefully end of this year or early next year.
Early next year? Okay, that's amazing.
End of this year.
Great.
So one disclaimer is that we are not building LLMs yet. Okay. Although our company has got, we have proven to be able to, both for text and speech, have models or algorithms for memory constrained devices. We have not yet started working on LLMs. Maybe at some point in time we want to use our expertise to be able to do that.
Okay, great. Nikhil, please stand. If you could stand up, introduce yourself. Not everybody knows you.
Everybody would know Nikhil. So
thanks. I'm Nikhil Pawa from Media Nama. Quick question, and any of you can answer this. Can you explain why we're looking at Indian language large language models instead of Indian language small language models in a sense? Because what we've also seen with Swechha in Telangana with Telugu AI is that they've got 95% accuracy, on voice to text. And they're still figuring out the licensing between open sourced, etc. But it's a 300 MB model that can fit on a mobile phone. So why aren't we starting small and then figuring out whether and solving for initial use cases instead of looking at large language models? Secondly, to Manu, you said that you will be open sourcing Nanda service. Curious about how you've thought about licensing. Is it open weights? Is it or is it an open model? Because that's a controversy that's raging around the open source world about Meta's Llama saying that that's not really open sourced, and the Open Source Institute is modifying the definition of open source, much to the chagrin of many people in the open source community. So how are you thinking about licensing and potentially also someone else taking what you've built and then creating their own on top of it or modifying it, etc.? Because Llama has constraints up to 300 million MAUs, for example. So is it open source? Is it open models? What's the approach?
Got it. So Arvind, why don't you answer the first question, which is small LLM, I guess, SLM? I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
And then Manu, you can answer. Thank you.
Okay. So, I mean, simply speaking, small and large are very relative. What you are calling as small was once upon a time large. And now, in fact, our model was a 7 billion parameter model. So now it comes under small language model. But traditionally it was supposed to be a large language model. Now that people have scaled it to many hundreds of billions of parameter models, these are now called small language models. Yes, small language models have their own value in terms of cost, in terms of ability, in terms of focus. We're also looking at small language model. In fact, our model, you can call it as a small language model.
Okay, let's, Manu, go quick. We want to get more questions
Sure.
in. We only have 5 minutes left.
I think
Manu,
on just
please
small
answer the second
versus
question.
large, I think both have their own use cases. If you want to basically run...
No, you have to ask about the open.
I will also do that. Just one second.
Manu,
I think
come
both
on,
of them have
come
their
on,
own
Manu.
use cases. And they would definitely be use cases when you can run small models on your phone, on your laptop, and no doubt about it, both of them will probably coexist. On open source question, I don't think we have finally taken a call, but we would definitely want to have a base version open source, which means anybody and everybody can basically download it and can use it and build upon it. No issues.
Is it a public good? Because you're doing it open source?
So we would want to do both, like ideally a base version which is open source and a more advanced version which we can commercialize, because we also a for-profit organization, so we would want to make some money. So ideally we have both, a base version which is open for everybody and a other model that we can monetize.
Okay. We have a question. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm sorry. We have a question that came from the WhatsApp. So I want to honor the people who actually took the time and energy to send that question in. Very quick question. I guess I'll give this one to Arvind. How is security and privacy of user inputs taken by Indian LLMs? Very interesting question. It's more of actually it's a policy question. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I don't think I'm qualified to answer that. Maybe.
Well, because you when you were doing the Indic keyboards, you're logging all the data. You're logging all the keystrokes.
Yes,
that's the reason I was asking you that question.
From that standpoint, we actually don't tie it back to the user. So we use the data for improving the engine, but we don't necessarily tie it back to the data coming from what data coming from which user.
Now you can do that. Now let's talk about, you're based in San Jose, you're based in Dubai, Abu Dhabi. You're building Indic LLMs. The data, where's the data stored, right? And then how do you guys manage security and privacy of data?
I think it's a great question, and anybody who downloads this, for example, this model and builds upon it, adding to what Nikhil basically said, ideally we would want to give the option to that particular person, the power to that person, that they can do it on their on-prem and can have full control over data. So it is not only leaves the geographical boundaries of the country, but also does not leave the geographical boundaries of that particular company or that organization who is building upon it. And yeah, I think that's how it...
You want anything to add?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, all the data lives in India. We take seriously, and especially when we want to go into enterprise.
What about anonymous? It might live in India, but can you track it to an individual user? He's giving the data on the keyboard. I'm logging in. You have my login.
Yes.
I'm asking some questions that I may not want anyone else to know.
Correct. So,
That's the problem.
yeah, I'll take that. So we are, especially when it comes to enterprise applications, we take data privacy security very seriously. In fact, I come from a background of at Microsoft where this is extremely taken extremely seriously. And we are bringing the same principles here at Krutrim. Right now, but in the consumer space, we are not yet guaranteeing that. But in the enterprise space, we definitely understand the importance of it. So absolutely, they'll be addressed.
Okay, let's move to the next question, which was about dialects. How are you guys managing dialects? They said, the question was asked that every 100 kilometers is a different dialect, but still the same language. Does that matter? Is that a difficult problem to solve, or is it not really an issue?
It is. And to the point that was being made earlier about data not being available, I think the biggest issues are, like, of course, while you're building a model, you need to have compute and you need to have data. The issue is, even if, just to add to that point of Hindi, while it is the third or fourth most spoken language in the world, but if you look at the digitized content in Hindi, so abysmally low. So when you come to different dialects, for example, Haryanvi or Punjabi or Gujarati, the amount of good quality data that you will have will be even lower. And models are like babies, garbage in, garbage out. The better the quality of food that you feed your baby, better will be the health of baby. Same is true for model. So unless you can get good quality data, you cannot build a really good quality model which can solve this dialect problem.
Got it, okay. Let's ask audience question. Who has not asked a question yet? Let them go first. Has anybody not asked a question that wants to ask a question? Okay. Ma'am, I know you've asked a question. Please go ahead.
My question is directed to Arvind, sir. So I've been following you even before the Reliance acquisition. My question to you is that semiotics is a field of study which entails studying symbology and translating into languages, which are codes and phrases.
Let's get to the question, if you don't mind.
I'm getting to that. So the concern is most of the world is, still illiterate or not literate in popular languages. There is a hefty part of the world that does not use smartphones or internet connected. There's talk about languages, LLMs and dialects being used and core models being honed to the T. My question effectively is, would you like to use semiotics for the illiterate or QWERTY phone users or less literate users and imbibe that in core LLM models so that it can enable better banking, better healthcare, better education for the less literate people?
Okay, please. Can you just maybe just summarize the question in one sentence?
Yeah, I can basically summarize that. First of all, thank you so much for following us. We know that there are two kinds of barriers that you are talking about. One is the language barrier itself, and the other one is the literacy barrier. While the language barrier can be addressed both through text as well as through speech, the literacy barrier is something that can be addressed through speech alone. So probably the solution to, I will be very honest that the terminology that you used, I have not heard about that one. So I don't want to comment on that, but I get what you are saying. And I think the large language model is agnostic of what kind of interface that you are building for the users. And if it is a literate user, they can possibly use both text as well as voice. And if it is not someone who can read or write text, they will possibly more prefer a voice-based interface to interact.
Great. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate it. And we have a little gift for you guys.
Fascinating insights into how Indian LLMs are set to shape the future of innovation in a country as diverse as ours. A big thank you to our speakers for such a thought-provoking session. May we have a round of applause, please? We wish to present the panelists with a token of our appreciation from TAI. Great session. Great session. We also thank our co-partners Krutrim and Khaitan & Co. for their support.